Well, let's get started. Now, to move the technology to market, there needs to be a buyer. The buyer is going to buy for an end user, or is the end user. The easiest way to get a handle on who the buyers, or more importantly, who the end users are, is to find a resource like the Occupational Outlook on the Department of Labor's site of the U.S. government, or an equivalent if you're in a different country, or if it's a disease, something like the Centers for Disease Control website, where they talk about what happens to patients and people who have diseases. You're trying to find some authoritative source that gives you sort of an understanding of the skills, the experiences, what's going on in the life of the person who is that end user and is going to stimulate the buying behavior. That's the trick for getting into that person's shoes and walking in their shoes. You need to find something that gives you an idea of the world they live in, and then you have to try and empathize and put yourself in that world. The easiest way to do that, quite frankly, is to pick up the phone and call them, as I've said before, to walk out and go to their place of work and talk to them directly. The other aspect in trying to empathize with somebody who's an end user is to try to imagine yourself doing that job. Once you read about it, you say, well, what would it be like if I only had that education? What would, in that skill mix? Or, wow, I had all those skills in education. What would it be like for me? What would my life be like? What would it be, would I, when I come home, would I be satisfied? Would I be grouchy? When I'm in the work, would I be like sweating and trying to get the dirt out of my eyes? Or am I in a clean office? Or am I out there and people are shooting at me? Who knows what? But you're trying to understand sort of the nitty-gritty of their life, because the story can't be abstract. It has to be about these people, because the buyers and the sellers are not institutions. People who buy are real people, just like you and me. Similarly, our competition and ourselves as sellers are real people, and we have to try and get a handle on who these individuals are as people, as well as members of something called a customer segment, which is simply a group of people who have similar traits and buy the same kinds of things using the same kind of criteria. Or on the standpoint of sellers, in what they call an industrial sector, which is all the companies in the sector that sort of compete the same way and are selling toward the same kind of stuff for the same people. Those are abstractions. The story has to be concrete. So as you're telling the story, even if you're using data about large social trends, you always have to try to understand what it means for the buyer as a person, for the seller as a person. How do you make this story concrete so that it's about real people? Because if it's not about real people, there's no way anybody's going to find it persuasive, because only real people buy things.